Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a hard truth. 95% of people are wasting their time, not because they're lazy, not because they're not trying, not what you had to do. I'm not asking about your calendar, your job, or your appointments. I'm asking why. Why are you doing any of it? Why are you living the life you're living? Because here's the sobering truth. Most people don't know. They're not choosing their direction. They're just drifting. They wake up, go through the motions, chase deadlines, pay bills, scroll through screens, and fall asleep again. And then they wonder why. After years of this, their soul feels hollow and their joy seems absent. They wonder why life feels more like survival than calling. That's what I mean when I say 95% of people are wasting their time. Not because they're bad people, not because they're lazy, but because they are not living on purpose. You see, when you live without a sense of purpose, you become a slave to the urgent. You'll spend your life running, yet never arriving. And that's a tragedy, because God didn't design us to drift aimlessly like ships without sails. We were made to live with direction, intention, and conviction. You were created with a purpose far bigger than just getting through the week. But purpose doesn't come to you by accident. It's not something you stumble into on a random Tuesday. It's something you have to seek. You have to wrestle for it. You have to get quiet enough to hear that still small voice that says, "This is the way, walk in it." But most people are so surrounded by noise that they never stop long enough to listen. They're addicted to distraction, and distraction is the enemy of clarity. That's why the first golden rule is this: live with purpose, not by default. Now listen, this doesn't mean you have to know the entire roadmap of your life. It doesn't mean you have to have every step figured out, but you do need to know your direction. You need a North Star, and for that you need to stop and ask some hard questions. What am I really living for? What's the one thing I'm willing to sacrifice for? What kind of legacy do I want to leave when I'm gone? If you can't answer those questions, then it doesn't matter how busy or efficient you are, you're still wasting your time. Activity without direction is just noise. It might feel productive, but it leads nowhere. Now let me get personal for a moment. There was a time I thought I was doing everything right. I was doing ministry, working hard, moving fast, but I began to realize I was doing many good things, but not necessarily the right things. And the right thing, my friends, is always the thing that's tied to God's purpose for your life. It's easy to get swept up in busyness and miss the deeper calling. It's easy to serve people and forget to sit at His feet. But when you lose your anchor, you lose your way. Purpose brings clarity. It tells you what to pursue and what to ignore. It gives you the courage to say no to things that don't align with what matters most. And let me tell you, when you begin to live with purpose, you will feel it in your soul. Your days may still be full, but they will no longer feel wasted. Your actions may still require effort, but they will no longer feel empty. You won't need applause to feel validated. You won't need a platform to feel significant. Because when you're living on purpose, even the small things matter. Washing dishes becomes worship. Answering emails becomes an act of stewardship. Every moment becomes sacred because it's done in obedience, not just obligation. But hear me, this is not something the world will encourage you to do. The world will tell you to chase success, comfort, approval, influence. The world will give you 1,000 false purposes and label them as freedom. But real freedom is found in obedience. Real joy is found in walking in the will of God, not wandering in the will of the crowd. That's why so many are exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing too much of what doesn't matter. That's why they lie awake at night with a restlessness they can't name, because deep down, they know they're meant for more. And I don't mean more in the way the world defines it, more stuff, more praise, more followers. I mean more purpose, more presence, more peace. And it all begins the moment you decide to stop living by default. Don't wait for a crisis to wake you up. Don't wait for the bottom to fall out before you ask the right questions. Start now. Ask yourself, if I keep living like this, Where will I end up? Is this how I want to spend the one life I've been given? Because you don't get a second run at this. You don't get to rewind the clock and reclaim wasted decades. God has given you this moment, this one, to choose a different path, a path marked not by noise and pressure, but by focus and faith, a path that honors Him even when no one else is watching, a path that even in suffering is full of meaning. So don't drift, don't waste another year, another week, another breath. That might sound simple, too simple, maybe, but it is one of the most powerful truths you will ever grasp, because your life is not just shaped by the things you say yes to. It is also shaped, often more powerfully, by the things you have the courage to say no to. And most people, they never learn that. You see, time is not like money. You can't earn more of it. You can't store it in a bank. Once it's spent, it's gone. And the world is full of demands, trying to spend it for you. Everyone wants a piece of your time. Everyone has an opinion on how you should live. Your job wants more of you. Social media wants more of you. Your ego wants to say yes to every opportunity, every invitation, every approval, and without even realizing it, you will end up living a life that doesn't even belong to you. A life shaped by the expectations of others. A life where you are always saying yes and dying slowly on the inside. That's what I mean when I say people are wasting their time. They don't even see it happening. They're not sitting around doing nothing. No, they're constantly doing something. But it's not the right thing. They're always busy, always tired, always stretched thin, and yet somehow still not moving forward. And the reason is simple. They've said yes to too many things that don't matter. And they've lost the ability to say no with conviction. But let me tell you something, the world will never teach you. Saying no is not selfish, it's wise, it's holy, it's necessary. We live in a culture that celebrates overcommitment. If your calendar is full, if your phone is ringing, if your inbox is overflowing, then you must be important. But importance doesn't come from how many people need you. It comes from whether or not you're doing what God has called you to do. And hear me clearly, not everything that comes your way is from God. Not every open door is meant to be walked through. Not every request deserves your energy. And sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is say, no, that's not part of the mission. You cannot live a focused life if you are constantly available to everything and everyone. If you try to please everyone, you will end up betraying the purpose God has placed in you. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot give your life to everything and expect to be excellent in anything. You know what happens when people say yes too often? They start living a divided life. Their attention is scattered. Their mind is fragmented. Their soul is restless, and they start cutting corners on the things that actually matter: family, faith, rest, integrity. They begin to serve with resentment instead of joy. They lose the fire they once had, and eventually, they either burn out or break down. You have to decide, will I live to be faithful, or will I live to be liked? Because you can't always be both. There will be times when your no disappoints others. There will be times when people misunderstand you, question your motives, or walk away. That's part of it. That's the cost of clarity. But better to be misunderstood for standing firm than to be celebrated for living a life that's not yours. You are not called to everything. You are not called to everyone. You are not called to solve every problem or meet every need. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. Jesus himself didn't heal everyone. He didn't go to every town. He walked away from crowds. He withdrew to lonely places. Why? Because he was committed to doing the will of the Father, not being driven by the demands of the people. And if Jesus, the Son of God, said no, why do you think you should say yes to everything? There is power in a well-placed no. It protects your time. It guards it sharpens your focus. And most importantly, it creates space for the right yes. The kind of yes that leads to growth, obedience, and eternal fruit. But you won't learn to say no unless you are deeply anchored in your purpose. That's why these rules are not random. They are connected. You must live with purpose if you want to say no with conviction. You must know your mission if you're going to filter what belongs in your life and what doesn't. Without that filter,
You'll say yes to everything that looks good but isn't right. Sometimes the enemy of your best is not something evil, it's something good that isn't yours to carry. And let me just say this, some of you are exhausted because you've been carrying burdens God never asked you to carry. You said yes to things out of guilt. You said yes to avoid conflict. You said yes because you didn't want to disappoint someone. But that yes became a chain, not a calling. And now you're stuck in obligations that are draining the life out of you. It's time to break free from that. It's time to take your time and your calling seriously, because your time is sacred. It's not to be handed out cheaply. Not everyone gets unlimited access to you. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. There is a cost to every yes, and you need to start counting that cost. Say yes to what aligns with your mission. Say yes to what builds up your family, your soul, your calling. Say yes to the things that bear eternal weight. But to do that, you'll have to say no to distractions, even if they look like blessings. You will never regret saying no to things that weren't meant for you. So let me say it as plainly as I can. If you want to stop wasting your time, you have to stop saying yes to everything. Don't wait until your health breaks down. Don't wait until your children grow up and wonder why you were never fully present. Don't wait until your heart is dry and your spirit is numb. Start now. Start small, but start. Say no with grace, but say it with strength. Let your life be shaped not by people's expectations, but by God's purpose.
We live in a distracted age. Everyone's busy, everyone's in motion, and yet very few are truly moving forward. People jump from one thing to another, never finishing, never building, never breaking through. Their days are filled with noise, their minds are flooded with information, and their souls are exhausted. They go to bed tired, not because they've done too much of the right thing, but because they've done too much of everything else. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Busyness is not the same as fruitfulness. Constant motion is not the same as meaningful progress. You can be active all day and still waste your life. You can look productive to the outside world and still be wasting the gifts God gave you. What matters is not how much you do, but what kind of work you give yourself to. There is work that looks impressive but leads to nothing. It doesn't change you. It doesn't grow you. It doesn't glorify God. It just keeps you distracted and dependent on applause. But there is also a kind of work that is hard, slow, quiet, and deeply transformative. It's the work you do when no one's watching, the work you do in secret, the work that stretches your soul and sharpens your mind and deepens your faith. And let me tell you, that kind of work doesn't happen in a flurry of distractions. It happens in the quiet place. It happens in stillness. It happens in focus. That's why this golden rule matters so much. If you want your life to mean something, you must trade shallow motion for deep work. Now, deep work is not glamorous. It's not trendy. It's not something you can show off on social media. It doesn't come with immediate results. It requires discipline. It requires saying no to distractions. It requires showing up even when you don't feel like it. But it's also the only kind of work that transforms you. You can't build a strong mind with 30-second videos. You can't build a strong soul with 5-minute devotions. You can't build a lasting impact by bouncing between tasks and never finishing anything. If you want to become someone God can use, you've got to dig deep. You've got to be willing to do what others avoid. You've got to push through boredom, push through resistance, and push through the desire for instant gratification. And this isn't just about career or creativity. This is about your entire life. Your relationship with God requires deep work. You can't rush prayer. You can't microwave intimacy with the Lord. You can't expect depth in your walk if you never sit still long enough to hear His voice. And some of you are so used to being distracted that silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels foreign, but that's where the power is. The devil doesn't have to destroy you with sin. He just has to keep you busy enough that you never slow down to hear the conviction. Keep you distracted enough that you never see what's broken in you. Keep you entertained enough that you never hunger for the real thing. That's the danger of shallow motion. It tricks you into thinking you're living when really you're just avoiding life. Deep work demands something from you. It demands that you carve out time, that you eliminate distractions, that you discipline your mind. And most people won't do that, which is why most most people never grow. They chase comfort instead of growth. They chase speed instead of depth. But hear me, what's easy is rarely eternal. And what's eternal is rarely easy. If you want to do something that matters with your life, then stop scattering your attention across 1,000 trivial things. Start showing up to the few things that actually matter and give them your best. That might mean spending less time online and more time in prayer. It might mean reading fewer opinions and more truth. It might mean working in obscurity while everyone else is chasing spotlight. But that's where transformation happens, in the hard, in the quiet, in the deep. And it's not just about personal growth, it's about stewardship. God has given each of us something to build, something to carry, something to multiply. But if we don't focus, if we don't discipline our lives, we'll bury what He gave us under a pile of distraction. We'll waste our days chasing what doesn't last. We'll come to the end of our lives realizing we climbed the ladder only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall. So you need to ask yourself, am I doing the work God actually called me to do? Or am I just staying busy so I don't have to face the silence? Am I moving in obedience, or am I just trying to look important? Because you can't do deep work with a shallow heart. You can't make eternal impact with a scattered mind. You have to slow down. You have to focus. You have to go deep. If that means turning your phone off, do it. If that means waking up earlier, do it. If that means clearing your calendar so you can seek God without interruption, do it. The cost of focus is high, but the cost of distraction is far greater. Your life is too short and your calling is too important to waste it on shallow things. So stop sprinting in circles. Start digging deep. That's how legacies are built. That's how souls are shaped. That's how lives are changed. You see, the problem today isn't that people don't want to do great things. Most people want impact. They want influence. They want to be remembered, but they forget something crucial. God doesn't use vessels because they are flashy. He uses them because they are clean. It is not how loud you speak, but how deeply you live. And character is the foundation of every lasting work. Without it, your success will become your downfall. Without it, your gifts will take you to places your soul cannot handle. So here's the fourth golden rule. What will change everything in your life? Build your life on character, not image. The reason this matters so deeply is because we're living in a time when image is everything. People will spend hours curating how they look, how they're perceived, how they're branded, but very little time cultivating who they truly are when no one is watching. And this kind of life, this split between the public and the private, is unsustainable. It creates pressure, anxiety, fear, and eventually destruction. Because you can't fake integrity forever. Sooner or later, what's hidden will come to light. Sooner or later, your life will reflect what you've really built it on. And I want to tell you something with urgency. If you are building a life on image, on appearance, on what other people think, you are building on sand. You might look like you have it all together. People might admire you. They might even follow you. But storms will come. Temptation will come. Pressure will come. And if the roots of your life aren't buried deep in truth and character, everything you've built will fall apart. And not just your reputation, your peace, your family, your soul. We don't need more gifted people. We need more honest. We don't need louder voices. We need deeper lives. Because the kingdom of God is not advanced by impressive personalities. It's advanced by surrendered hearts. Hearts that are the same in the dark as they are in the light. Hearts that fear God more than they fear people. Hearts that would rather be unknown and holy than applauded and compromised. Character isn't something you stumble into. It's forged in the fire of daily choices. The choice to tell the truth, even when it costs you. The choice to confess sin rather than cover. The choice to forgive, even when it hurts. The choice to walk away from something that looks good but would poison your soul. These are the moments where your life is really shaped, not when the spotlight is on, but when no one sees you except God. And this is what separates those who finish well from those who fall apart. You can run hard for a season, driven by talent or ambition, but only character will keep you steady for the long haul. Only character will allow you to grow in influence without growing in pride. Only character will protect you from the corruption that so easily entangles. It's the anchor in the storm, the guardrail on the mountain, the quiet strength that no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. But character requires something this
this world despises: humility. You cannot grow in character if you're not willing to admit your weakness. You cannot be made whole if you are determined to look flawless. And the reason so many waste their time is because they spend their life trying to maintain an image instead of allowing God to transform their heart. They'd rather look strong than be healed. They'd rather be admired than be changed. Don't fall into that trap. Let God do the deep work in you, even if no one claps for it. Let Him expose what's fake, even if it feels uncomfortable. Let Him purify your motives, even if it means losing opportunities, because what He builds in the secret place will stand in the storms. What He shapes in the wilderness will endure in the spotlight. And the people who make the greatest impact are the ones who are willing to be broken before they are seen. And let me say this directly: some of you are in a hidden season and you're frustrated. You feel unseen. You feel overlooked. You feel like nothing is happening. But I want to tell you, it is not wasted. God is building something in you that cannot be rushed. He is developing roots before fruit, depth before height, character before platform. And if you try to skip this part, if you try to force your way into influence without being prepared, you'll collapse under the very thing you chased. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to chase attention. You don't need to manipulate your image. You need to be faithful. You need to walk in integrity. You need to let your yes be yes and your no be no. You need to live in such a way that your private life would never embarrass your public witness, that your conscience is clean, your words are true, your hands are pure. That's the kind of life that God bless. That's the kind of life the world can't explain. That's the kind of life that changes everything. So let this be your resolve: not to be popular, not to be perfect, but to be pure, to walk humbly, to act justly, to love mercy, and to live in the fear of the Lord. Because one day every platform will fade, every title will be forgotten, every achievement will be dust, but who you became in the process, your character, that's what will echo in eternity. That's what God sees. That's what matters. So choose now to live in a way that honors Him, even when no one's watching, because the integrity you build in silence is worth more than the praise you gain in public. That we can carry our burdens in silence, fight our battles in secret, and somehow come out whole on the other side. But that's not how this was ever meant to work. We were created for something deeper, something older than the individualism this world promotes. We were created for community, real, honest, committed community. And that's the final golden rule. If you want to stop wasting your life, stop walking alone. There is a loneliness today that is not caused by lack of people. It's caused by a lack of depth. We're more connected than ever before, and yet more isolated than any generation that's come before us. We scroll through carefully filtered pictures of other people's lives. We react to statuses. We throw around heart emojis, and yet our souls remain untouched, unknown, uncared for. You can have hundreds of online friends and still be desperately alone in the things that matter most. Because likes are not love and followers are not family. But here's the reality: God never designed you to fight alone. From the beginning of time, He said it is not good for man to be alone. And that statement goes far deeper than marriage. It's a declaration of design. You are meant to be part of something bigger than yourself. You are meant to be sharpened, challenged, comforted, corrected, encouraged. And none of that happens in isolation. That only happens in true fellowship, the kind where masks come off, walls come down, and hearts are knit together in truth. But that's rare today, isn't it? Real community. Because it's costly, it requires vulnerability, it demands that you let people into the places you'd rather keep hidden. It means being honest about your fears, your failures, your sins, and that's terrifying for most people because we've been trained to perform, to curate an image, to pretend we're okay when we're breaking apart. But let me ask you this: how long can you keep doing that? How long can you keep smiling when your soul is exhausted? How long can you keep walking into church or into life with a mask on, hoping no one sees the cracks? That is not strength, that is survival, and it's not what you were made for. You need people in your life who will speak truth to you when you can't see it yourself. People who will pray for you when you're too weak to pray. People who will ask the hard questions, hold you accountable, and call you higher, not because they're trying to control you, but because they love your soul too much to stay silent. That kind of community is not optional, it's essential. Without it, you will fall. Maybe not tomorrow, but isolation always leads to destruction. The enemy knows this. That's why he works so hard to divide. He whispers lies that sound like truth. You don't need anyone. No one would understand. They'll judge you if you tell them, and so you stay silent. You hide, you keep secrets, but secrets are where shame grows. Secrets are where sin multiplies. And before long, what started as isolation becomes suffocation. But hear me, freedom begins the moment you step into the light, the moment you say, I can't do this alone anymore. The moment you let someone into your story, that's where healing begins. That's where growth takes root. That's where real discipleship happens. Not in rows, not in lectures, but in relationships, in coffee shops, in living rooms, in long walks, and tearful prayer. In truth spoken gently but boldly, in grace that doesn't excuse sin but walks with you through repentance. You want to know why most people waste their time? It's not because they're lazy, it's because they're alone. They have no one to sharpen them, no one to challenge them, no one to hold them accountable, so they drift, slowly, subtly, until years pass, and they look back wondering where the time went. But the answer is simple, they walked alone, and no one walks alone and wins. So if you want to live differently, if you want to build a life that counts, you need to build your life around godly people, not just people who agree with you, not just people who flatter you, people who love God more than they love your approval, people who will tell you the truth, even if it stings, people who will lift your arms when you're too tired to fight. You need spiritual family, and not just once a week. You need the kind of people who know your real name, your real struggles, your real story, and still choose to walk with you. That kind of connection doesn't happen by accident. It takes intentionality, it takes courage, it takes humility. So maybe you need to go first, maybe you need to reach out, maybe you need to say, I need help, maybe you need to confess something you've been hiding. Maybe you need to forgive someone who hurt you so the door to healing can finally open. Maybe you need to show up even when it's inconvenient, even when you don't feel like it, because community isn't always comfortable, but it is always worth it. And if you've been hurt by people in the past, if you've been burned by church or betrayed by someone you trusted, I want you to know God sees that. He knows the pain, and He's not asking you to trust blindly. He's asking you to let Him heal you, to try again, to take the risk of connection, not because people are perfect, but because He is present, and He does some of His deepest work through imperfect people walking together in love. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you have it all together. Don't wait until someone invites you in. Step toward it now. Choose community, choose connection, choose to be known.